for the regular meeting?
Oh, here we go. Reading if each student has access to that.
Yeah, if only I had bifocals, I'd be better at this.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. on August 16th, 2021. We'll commence our regular board meeting. Christina has the meeting properly noticed.
Yes, it has.
Thank you very much. And if you would proceed with the reading of our Vsd Equity Statement.
I will. Our Vsd Equity Statement reads, each student has access to the resources and educational rigor they need at the right moment in their education, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, ability, language, family background, or family income.
Thank you very much. And as a reminder, I know I've stated this at previous meetings, but we will commence each meeting with the reading of that statement, which will guide our work focused on producing positive student outcomes. So thank you very much, Christina. And with that, prior to moving to our public comment section, I just want to reiterate the guidelines for the meetings today. We ask that masks be worn at all times. Eating is not permitted, and failure to abide by these requirements may result in your removal from the meeting venue. So we do appreciate you abiding by these guidelines for our meeting tonight. Okay, for public comment, I will ask that those who wish to speak in public comment wear your mask when speaking into the microphone here on stage. Please refrain from mentioning specific staff or students, and we will keep remarks to 3 minutes or less per person. I will be keeping time, and I will notify speakers when their time has expired. I'd ask that those who speak form a line to your right-hand side of the stage over here. And you will be called upon to speak. You may approach the table located on the right side of the board table. In the interim, as we call individuals up to line on the right-hand side of the stage, I will read the comments submitted for public comment via email. I have 3 comments that were submitted. The first one is from Dr. Jill Mork, who writes, I have some questions that I would like to be included in the board meeting on Monday, August 16th. I look forward to seeing everyone at the meeting and your follow-up responses. My questions are as follows. What metrics are being used to determine masking policies? What numbers would cause it to be deemed safe to allow masks to be a parental choice? How often are you reevaluating the metrics? Are we looking at the case numbers alone, not the severity of sickness, hospitalization, or rate of death rate? According to the CDC, as of 8-12, there have been 0 deaths from COVID in the 0 to 9 age group and 3 deaths in the 10 to 19 age group in all of Wisconsin during the course of the pandemic. According to Wisconsin DHS, in the 2019-2020 flu season, there were 3 deaths in the 0 to 18 age group. Why has it been deemed necessary for a mandate now? Will you monitor the efficacy of your masking policy against similarly sized districts that have implemented mask optional policies? And are you going to adjust your approach accordingly if they yield similar outcomes to yours? Please clarify how you're holding the district leadership accountable for student results as stated in the email. What type of results are you monitoring and how are you monitoring them? The Vsd back to school plan that you fully support states masks are safe. There are many myths and false claims circulating on the internet about mask safety. These are not accurate based on medical advice and research from federal, state, and local levels. Please provide the research the statement is based on, and attached there is some research from reputable journals that raises some important data and questions. The next comment I have was submitted by Suzanne Olajos, who writes, Dr. Clarity and VSD school board members, thank you for following the science and requiring masking in district schools. This is particularly important in elementary schools where the majority of people in the buildings will be unvaccinated. The Delta variant is over twice as transmissible as the original strain. I'll go further. If possible, the district ought to offer/provide high-quality N95, KF94, or KN95 masks to all children. If that's not affordable, how about to all unvaccinated children? Many families are buying these now anyway, but this could really help families who can't afford it. Obviously, we can't do it alone, but we'd be willing to at least chip in to help vulnerable students. Please continue to do the right thing. We see you and are grateful for what you are already doing regarding masking. Considering the fact vaccinated adults with breakthrough cases can transmit COVID, you may wish to require masking for everyone in your facilities at all times. Not a popular idea, no doubt, but perhaps the best way to ensure the health and safety of all. All right. The next statement was submitted by Dr. Jasmine Zapata, who writes, Dear Verona Area School District Board members, hello, my name is Dr. Jasmine Zapata, and I am a Chief Medical Officer for Community Health within our state, as well as a board-certified pediatrician practicing here in Dane County. Most importantly, however, I am the mother of 2 children in the Verona Area School District, and I'm here to submit comments as a parent tonight. I am deeply concerned about the rapidly rising rates of the COVID-19 Delta variant within our county, and I am concerned about children under 12 who are not yet eligible for the vaccine, such as my 10-year-old daughter with underlying medical conditions, which make her more susceptible to complications from COVID-19. I urge board members to take all measures possible to implement current CDC recommendations and guidelines to keep our children safe, including the mandatory use of masks for all children and staff. This is extremely important. Additionally, partnering with local health clinics to provide frequent COVID-19 vaccine clinics on site throughout the school year for parents to easily access with their children is another consideration. Also, the board should consider enhanced mental health support within schools for students struggling with emotional impacts from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, especially in light of the upcoming surge that is predicted. Thank you for your time and consideration. That concludes the public comments that were submitted via email. We did have additional comments that were directed to the board and the administration, but they were not submitted expressly for public comment, but we do appreciate hearing from the community via email as well and in person during our board meetings. So at this time, we will begin calling those up to the stage to present their public comments. And again, I remind you that I will be keeping a 3-minute timer and will ask that you respect the guidelines that I laid out earlier today at the start of this meeting. Dr. Clarity.
Good evening, everyone. If we can begin to line up for public comment, the first speaker would be, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, it's definitely not intentional, Mark Wirtz. Next will be Joel Mork and Joanne Lundberg.
So for those who are called who are not immediately up, please feel free to wait at the bottom of the stairs there. But for the first individual who's called, please feel free to proceed to the microphone and we will proceed accordingly.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Mark Wirtz. For full transparency, I'm a local physician here in Verona, and actually I'm part of the medical advisory board for the school district. But I also have 2 sons in Sugar Creek, and I really want to encourage for their sakes, for the sake of our families in the district that I know, and for the staff here at Verona Area School District, that we continue to mask per guidelines. I do think it is an effective way to protect our kids, help them protect their friends, help them protect their friends' families and the staff here. I know we are tired of a lot of things, and some people have had to bear a lot more of this than the rest of us. But I think this is something that we can continue to do for ourselves, but frankly, also for others. And I look forward to the day when we don't need to do it anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Our next speaker
Jill Moore.
Hello,
Welcome.
thanks for letting me speak here tonight. I'm Jill Mork. I'm a parent of an incoming kindergartner and also a local healthcare provider. And I want to start by saying that I'm a firm believer in parents being the ones to decide what's best for their family's health. Because really, there's one thing in common, which probably every one of us here tonight has, and that's the fact that we all want what's best for our kids. So regardless of how one feels regarding the masking policies, that we can most likely agree on. I also understand, the board itself is not the ones who decide the policies regarding the required masks versus parental choice in this matter. But in stating in your communication that you fully support the administration's masking policies, it made it clear that it was important that I share some information. And so I urge you to take a look at what some of us are discussing here tonight, along with some of the scientific data from reputable journals that may shed some light on why this policy isn't so black and white. Because when it comes down to it, the peer-reviewed medical research does not show that policies prevent transmission when it comes to the masking policies. I have sent in an extensive document last week that really outlines the exploration of the scientific literature regarding the effectiveness of masks. I've also brought a hard copy if you would like that as well. But really, there is no, like I said, peer-reviewed published data showing that masks are effective or safe for kids. The CDC shows what are called the observational studies, which as outlined in the research I provided, it poses significant limitations to the research. In the absence of peer-reviewed data, I don't understand how the district can mandate a policy that has been shown to have negative impacts on the child's health, especially because they're in the vital stages of growing and developing physically, mentally, and cognitively. Without even going into some of the information about the mask transmission effectiveness, there's data that shows there's uptick in so many other challenges that one can argue can impact a child's health to a greater degree. For example, one of the studies in the packet you received that stated that healthy emotional development spanning from early infancy into late adolescence is significantly dependent upon the ability to recognize and process emotions communicated through the facial expressions of others. Clearly, that doesn't happen when there's a mask in place. Another study reported that failures to recognize and identify facial expressions cause childhood emotional processing deficits and adversely affect behavior, having lasting negative consequences into adulthood. As recently as a week ago, a meta-literature review published by the Journal of the American Medical Association Pediatrics found that anxiety and depression rates in kids has doubled since the start of the pandemic. And then a final study I want to just mention is that it evaluated the benefits and the consequences to children wearing face masks during school and the pandemic. And it said that mask use increases the likelihood of emotional misinterpretation and misunderstandings in communication. This basically gave way to kids perceiving things as being more aggressive. And really, when it comes down to it, masks impact the mental, emotional, and cognitive health in children. And so I don't know about you, but if I was a
Excuse
member.
me, I'm sorry, 3 minutes has elapsed. So if you could conclude your comments. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. Really, I just want you to review the research and look into things and to see that see if the benefits truly outweigh the risks, especially considering the scientific literature says that masks are problematic for children's health. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joanne. And next we have Karen Pings and Jeremy Pings.
And if you would join us here at the stage.
And
Thank you.
Joanne, I apologize, I could not pronounce it. Can you say your last name for me, please?
What's that, Dr.?
I was asking for, I couldn't make out the last name.
Oh, it's Lindbergh.
Lindbergh. Thank you. Joanne Lindbergh.
Excellent. We'll start the clock when you begin speaking. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your service to our community, especially during these uncertain and stressful times. I have a niece and nephew in the Verona schools, and this fall I turned 70 years old. I was a teacher for 20 years. I was also an entrepreneur for 30 as an owner of different businesses. I have also been and currently am for 25 years, traditional Asian medicine practitioner in private practice. Teaching was my first chosen career. I love children. They are loving, honest, and authentic. They are our future. When I was a teacher, education was about the needs of children. We were taught that in order for them to learn, they needed to feel safe, first and foremost. Now that doesn't seem possible. I'm here today to make a request. When considering mask wearing, please look at independent studies. Consider all risks versus possible benefits. First, do no harm. Please consider the social, psychological, and physical effects along with the possible trauma that is being incurred. Well, I'm having a hard time breathing. Okay. Consider that only following the CDC may be fraught with problems. Following any organization that does not have our best interests in mind may lead to harm for all of us. Corruption and censoring are trends that do not bode well for us. Governments seem to be locked in political battle over health issues that belong in the hearts and minds of individuals, or at least true health experts without hidden agendas. It seems to me that organizations are making decisions based on fear and lack of understanding of how our immune system functions. Placing too much power in the hands of those that seem to have only profits in mind is creating a great deal of suffering. What is happening to our ability to think critically? We need an independent, full investigation into this health crisis. Consider that other countries have not masked their children. Sweden, for example, just reported they have 0 COVID cases. They never shut down their entire economy. Denmark has not masked their children. Masks have not been mandatory in these countries to the best of my knowledge. I believe that our health and well-being is being threatened in many ways. Fear and chaos continue to wreak havoc. How are we going to get out of this? How will we ever be able to trust each other and work together for the good of all? I have many questions that are still unanswered. I hope and pray that we aren't repeating the Holocaust that have happened in the past. Humans seem to have the ability to do heinous things to others with no conscience. The McCarthy era was started by a Wisconsin senator. The virus then was called communism. Countless people suffered for many years. The truth will be revealed. Time will tell. In the meantime, I pray love and caring will prevail. We are human beings with hearts. I hope we have not forgotten this. Mask wearing, make mask wearing for children in our schools voluntary, or at least provide exemptions for those with health concerns. Better yet, tell our children masks are not necessary. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. This we have Karen Pings, followed by Jeremy Pings and Adam Bauer. Bear, sorry.
I'm going to allow my husband to go first.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, board. Good evening, superintendent. My name is Jeremy Pings. I'm a resident in the town of Springdale. I'm sure you all are aware that the world language class has been removed from the 6th grade curriculum and replaced with a course titled Youth Empowerment, Justice and Joy. For that course titled Youth Empowerment, Justice and Joy, I am asking for a copy of the syllabus in use, including learning objectives, discussion questions, assignments, and all resources that the teacher and students will be learning and using in class. Please be sure to include all written, printed, and digital copies. Could you please have the appropriate resources to me in an email or delivered in the most appropriate manner within 48 hours of receiving my email notification, which I believe you all have received, unless I entered it in wrong. And a second thing, I just would like to ask to see if you could adopt a transparency policy. And here's the wording of that policy. The school district shall prominently list on a publicly accessible portion of its website by July 1st of each year, the learning materials and the activities that were used for student instruction and teacher instruction at the school during the prior school year, organized at a minimum by subject area and grade level. Hope it's not too much to ask. Thank you for your consideration. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Karen Pings, Adam Barr, and then Rebecca Lindberg.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I have so many things going through my head. It's hard to choose which to talk about, but I have 3 minutes. I'm hearing a lot of division, but I do want to mention that bodily autonomy is the right for a person to govern what happens to their body without external influence or coercion. We teach our children that it is okay to say no, even when an adult when they are being forced to do something they are not comfortable with. My child and many other children are not comfortable wearing a mask. Since their school is forcing them to wear one, you are teaching them that their body is not under their control and that they must yield to the adult if told to do so. This is very upsetting to me. If a child is uncomfortable with something that is happening to them, they should be empowered to stop it. My child is not comfortable wearing a mask, and VASD will not force or coerce them into doing so. They are in control of their own bodies, and wearing a mask makes them feel uncomfortable and has negative effects on both their mental and emotional well-being. That is my stance on masking. I am also working very hard to find transparency in the courses coming up for my 6th grader. My husband, Jeremy, mentioned the course, Justice and Joy and Youth Empowerment. Since July 22nd, I've been trying to get my hands on the course curriculum and have failed to do so. I've reached out to middle school principals and I've only gotten replies from one. I was told that I would have the curriculum after August 13th. I followed up on August 12th and I got a response that our central office academic services team is currently finalizing curriculum reviews for summer curriculum course development and addressing any revisions as needed. They went on to say that I could have the information requested after the 17th. Isn't that convenient? That will be 1 day shy of 2 weeks from my child starting this school year. I have yet to enroll my kids. I expect transparency. Life is so complicated these days. We don't have textbooks anymore that have been vetted and been used year after year with simple updates and different editions each year. We now get our kids learning from websites, and who knows, anyone could write those. I agree with my husband's statement, and I would love more transparency and for all parents to know what is being taught to their children. Thank you for your time and listening to my requests. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Adam Bear, am I saying it right? Barr, I'm sorry, Adam Barr. And then Rebecca Lindberg. And then Mark Zimmerman.
All right. As a parent of a student within the Verona Area School District, I'm expressing my grave concerns regarding the compulsory use of face masks in your school. It's come to our attention that there are widely known hazards, health risks, and dangers associated with the use of face masks, which can result in both physical and psychological harm to the user, as well as have a negative impact on both teaching and learning. It's reasonable to expect that you have considered such issues carefully and you're familiar with and reviewed and the available evidence prior to making a decision to require all students in your care to wear masks. However, if you have not done so to date, we wish to draw these issues to your attention and we call upon you to take immediate remedial action. Please be advised that we are of the view that compelling children to wear a face mask is a direct violation of their right to bodily integrity and/or personal autonomy, and thus constitutes an abuse. To be clear, we object to children being subjected to such abuse and call for an immediate end of a system that would perpetuate such abuse. There's scientific and medical data to support this, of course. In the packet that I have, there's lots of supporting studies that show how ineffectual masks are at preventing the transmission of viruses. I won't go through a lot of that, but it's just, there's a vast wealth of knowledge out there anyone can find. Let's see. Studies have noted that difficulty breathing can occur within 6 minutes of walking with masks, but we expect our kids to be active and have recess in gym class with masks, which last longer than 6 minutes. This would exacerbate breathing problems for children and is a point of concern. N95 masks reduce cyclical volume by 23%, which has caused warnings of their use with pregnant women. This amount of air reduction should be concerning with our children too. This may be countered with, we are only requiring cloth masks. But studies have shown that cloth masks allow 97% of influenza COVID particles to pass through. The long-term effects of oxygen deprivation due to masks on our children, including brain function, we may not be able to see realize for 10 to 20 years. By then it will be too late. The amount of children that have succumbed to COVID since the beginning of the pandemic has largely been on par or less than influenza, but we don't force children to wear masks with influenza.
Your 3 minutes has elapsed. If you would conclude your remarks.
Oh, that concludes my remarks then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Rebecca Lindberg, followed by Mark Zimmerman, and then Amy Allman.
I'm just going to conclude with what Adam was saying. Where he left off was during the past flu seasons, masks and mandates were not invoked. In light of the available scientific and medical data, it is evident that face masks constitute a hazard and pose a risk on the danger to the health and well-being of your pupils with little to no actual safety improvement. Relying on masks is simply promoting and relying on a false security with no significant supporting data. In fact, the state of Georgia's public schools in 2019 and 2020 found increasing airflow in the school's infiltration system more effective in preventing spread than masks. These things have already been done, is what we've been told in our Verona schools. The duty of care, we would respectfully draw your attention to the legal duties under law owed to our children while on your premises and in your care. Duties also arise in the context of the school-student relationship and/or out of an assumption of responsibility based on knowledge of potential dangers and/or risks and/or hazards in the school environment. We would respectfully point out the consequences of ignoring scientific and medical data, and continuing to implement a compulsory mask policy would constitute a declaration of your duty of care and has the potential harm or to cause harm or injury to all children. We would therefore call upon you to take this notice seriously and afford it the attention that it deserves. In the light of the above and in the following precautionary principle, we urge you to take all necessary action to prevent any further harm to my child, which I have two in the Verona district with immediate effect. In that regard, we call upon you to take the following actions. Place an immediate ban on the compulsory use of masks in your school. At minimum, masks should be optional. In light of known risks, mandating our children who are growing and developing is a blatant failure.
For you in your role as an educator or safeguard, children aren't allowed to run with scissors or smoke in the boys' room. Why would you enforce a policy that slowly depletes oxygen to their bodies? All of Governor Eager's orders allowed for exemptions. What do I do if someone is not wearing a face covering, even though they should be? Nothing. Some people have conditions or circumstances that would make wearing a face covering difficult or dangerous. Just wear your face covering and stay 6 feet away. What do I do if someone's harassing me for wearing a face covering? We had some students in our meetings and they felt that they were being bullied or harassed by teachers. And we were just kind of policed when we came in. No one should have to endure harassment for any reason, and nobody should even on the other end be going to harass people. So I guess in that, we're going to continue. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mark Zimmerman and then Amy Allman.
Yes, I concur with everything Adam and Rebecca just said, and the questions and answers actually come directly from Governor Evers' mandates. While I find it hard to breathe or talk in this thing, I'll try the best I can. In July, the City of Madison Civil Rights responded in pertaining to the Dane County order, and it reaffirms that it's a civil liberty issue and that people who have medical issues should be allowed to have exemptions, which is what we're asking for the kids. Public Health of Madison and Dane County's Emergency Order 16 went into effect. It also allows exemptions. So why are, as a school district, are you acting not in accordance with the local community and county as far as making rules? However, they did leave out rules for you. Schools, childcare and youth activities, you're supposed to ensure solely that employees, not children, wear face coverings at all times. However, this goes against the very principle of teaching and teachers' ability to communicate, which studies have shown that nonverbal cues have an important impact and are effective teaching tools. Facial expression is a tool of teaching learning process that could make teaching learning process much more effective and interesting. The technology of nonverbal communication could enhance the understanding of students in the classroom to help improve the teacher's role in promoting learning outcomes. Facial expressions of teachers like anger or a smile could help the students understand the message, which would help change their behavior accordingly to the learning requirements of the classroom. And contents were clarified through nonverbals. We ask you to take notice. This is real. This is something serious. We have a pile of people who have signed this letter for you. We ask that you were to confirm electronically and immediately cease and desist from compelling our students to wear a face mask in your school, or that you'll at least recognize and honor our prejudice or without prejudice exemptions in line with the other government mandates. Please furnish us a copy with all of your risk assessments, which are required by the state, by the school board in connection with the decision of enforcing masks and other COVID procedures. Provide confirmation that your staff, teachers individually have placed in charge of our children have been fully trained in connection with the risks associated with face masks, including recognizing the health contradictions from the use of the same.
Your 3 minutes have elapsed. Thank you very much.
Who can I leave it with?
Thank you. Next, we have Amy Allman and then Jen Kostic. And if I mispronounce that, I apologize again.
Hey there. Haven't been on this side of the table for a while, so.
Welcome.
Nice to see you. I just wanted to stop by and say in appreciation. This is another hard year. I know you'll take the comments that you hear to heart. I know you always have. I know because we have a lot of conversations about that. So I know this is another hard year and I'm really sorry about that. But I did want to stop by and say, for the last 16 years, I sat up here with you. We talked about a lot of hard issues and read a lot of email from a lot of families just like yourselves who are passionate, care about their kids, and everybody wants to do what's best for kids and keep them in school. So I wish you luck on your decision. I'm glad I don't have to help you decide this time around. Nicole, thank you for stepping up. I appreciate that more than you can know. I've waited for years for some Fitchburg residents to step up and want to maybe take my seat from me, but didn't have an opportunity until now. And Yana, I wanted to say thank you to you for also stepping up to the table. You touched my heart when you applied, and I'm really glad to see that you're still here. And I hope you stay for several more years, at least. I think you have a lot to offer. Jen, you've applied before, and I feel like this is really your time. You're bringing experience to the table that I think is really, really necessary at this particular juncture. Christina, it's always a pleasure to work with you and to watch our kids grow up together. That's been one of the greatest times, and the strategic plan process as well. I appreciated your contributions during those committee meetings. John, I'm also glad that you're on the board now too. You have a lot of project management experience and economic experience that I think will benefit this board and our school district. Noah, it's been a pleasure working with you also for these last number of years. Transparency was brought up a few times, and I know when you ran, that was one of the things that you wanted to improve on. And there's always room for improvement. I'm not saying that we've done all that we can do on as far as transparency is concerned, but I know the issues people will bring up, you will address, and you will work on it and work to make it better. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate your efforts community-wide to make our district better connected for the future going forward. And Meredith, I do appreciate working with you. I appreciate our phone calls when the emails from parents got hard. I appreciate the reflection you were able to provide me, and I think I've been able to provide you a little bit too. It's been a long few years, but in the years prior to that, we've done a lot of really good work too. Dr. Clarity, I wish you all the best as you get started. It was my greatest pleasure to help hire you to do this job. It's a very difficult job and another very difficult year. I wish you all the best and all the success.
Thank you.
That you have.
Thank you so much, Amy.
I know we're not supposed to comment on individual comments, but Amy, this feels a little bit different. If we could just take a quick second. Your name has been invoked at every meeting since your last, because you have left such a imprint on this district that so few people have gotten to see firsthand how huge the impact you've had and the work that you've done. And I know we are all incredibly grateful for the way that you've shaped the district for the betterment of our kids over 16 years. That's an extraordinary amount of dedication, and I am incredibly grateful because the things that you have brought to this district have improved my son's educational experience, and you have improved my time on the board just for who you are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll echo what Meredith said as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Noah.
And Amy, I wish we had a chance to give you a better send off, because I know when you decided that you were ready to be done, we really didn't get to have a send off befitting your contributions to VASD. So I'm still hopeful sometime we could do that, but it is a very busy time. But I hope your sending off of your youngest child goes well, and it's been a pleasure to serve with you as our children made it through high school and are now done. So
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That was our last registered public comment.
Yeah, I'm just double checking. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody.
Welcome.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Kustuk. Just to give you a little context and background, I have two kids and they were enrolled in Verona School District through 2nd and 5th grade. We pulled them out after those grades and we homeschooled and then we virtual schooled for the last 8 years. One's graduated now, and actually our 16-year-old decided to come back and she would be a junior here in high school. I didn't know what to expect. I was kind of coming here to listen and to observe what was going on. And I mean, I knew masking was going to be an issue, but I wanted to just listen and kind of absorb what was going on. And I work from home, so like a lot of times masking is just not an issue for me, obviously, because I'm at home. But so I come here to this very public place, and we get here and we were told to mask, and what wasn't a big surprise, really. But one of the people that I just met today, she didn't want to mask, and I didn't ask why. And she was told to mask, and she was kind of sternly told to mask. And then it was kind of what I would consider as an adult a little bit scary. And I'm wondering what's going to be happening for kids that have issues. I mean, we just assume that she's just not doing it because she doesn't want to do it. And that may not be the case. It could be that there could be some kind of medical reason, but we just assume that, no, you're just being obstinate. You're not masking because you don't want to mask. That was the assumption. So my daughter's coming into this school, and that kind of alarms me a bit, that how are kids going to be handled that can't handle masking? It's kind of important. And those are kids dealing with adults. I'm an adult and I kind of am afraid sometimes when somebody tells me you better mask, and if you don't, you're going to be kicked out of a public meeting. So how are kids going to be handled that can't handle it? It's important because they're kids and they're working with adults, and those kids look up to adults. So I don't have the answers, but I know it's really important to set a standard that everybody can live by. So, which is not an easy task, I realize that you have. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Based off everything I've received, that's the end of
Okay.
public comment.
Based on the notes that we have here, that concludes our public comment section. So we will move to item D, announcements. Any announcements from the board?
No, really quick, I just want to thank Roger, Chad, and Pete for helping me so much in learning all of the ins and outs of school finance. I know that we meet and have, they answer all of my questions and they have no problem answering them and ensuring that I understand what's going on and how things are moving in and out of the district. They are also working really hard to ensure the transparency that we all want to see when it comes to our school finance, and are putting processes and systems in place for us to see that, as well as the community. And so I just want to thank the three of them for working so hard on getting those things done and helping me, which will in turn ensure that the community understands what's going on and how we are allocating dollars and spending money within the district. So thank you.
Thank you, Jana. And I do have one comment before we proceed. I'd just like to thank everyone who attended the meeting tonight to provide comments for consideration, and also to those who submitted comments by email. The board certainly appreciates engagement and interest from public and their families within the district. And we regard that feedback with the utmost importance. On some specific inquiries, administration will likely follow up with you on those particular inquiries, while others may be addressed tonight during the presentation.
Noah, I do have a quick comment if we have time.
Yep.
I just wanted to make a brief statement. First, I wanted to start with thanking everybody who got up and spoke. It's a little nerve-wracking to speak at a public setting. As a working mom myself, I know it takes a lot of time to engage, and it's clear you all feel very passionately about your children. And they are all very lucky to have you as very engaged parents. I did just want to offer maybe another perspective. So as a mother and a human being, it's also very tempting to focus on inputs from my own experience. As a mother here shared a couple weeks ago, she went into the hospital and did not have to wear a mask. I was also in the hospital during COVID. I was giving birth to my son, and it was a rather scary time to be pregnant and giving birth to a baby. I did have to wear a mask, and I was only allowed to take off my mask when my COVID test came back negative. By the way, I had no trouble breathing through my mask when I was pregnant. I have 2 young children who cannot be vaccinated, and other than the antibodies that I shared through my breast milk to my son, they have no protection against the COVID-19 virus. But here's the thing, it's not just about me. It's not just about my kids. It's about all kids. As the school board, our job is to ensure that the policies and the vision for Verona Area School District are served and realized to the highest level. And as stated, this was not our decision, but we are in full support of that. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up. We are not abusing children. I understand that extrapolation, but this is not about abusing children. This is not about a Holocaust. This is about making sure that all children have equal access to education. And so thank you again to all of you who spoke. Again, I know it's very nerve-wracking and we do appreciate it. We might not all agree, but we all agree that you are engaged parents trying to advocate for your children. And we have to make the best choices that data and science can provide us. So just wanted to add that comment.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements? Don?
I have an announcement I keep forgetting to make. I don't know if I have to do this, but I got pressed into service on the CISA 2 board. So thanks to everyone who nominated me to be our CISA 2 rep. And now I get to serve on another board to represent our entire region. So that's fantastic.
And John, we are proud.
What?
I said, we're proud. Yeah.
Have you seen me work?
Yes, we
We're
have.
impressed. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So anyway,
No.
ooh, did you?
Any other announcements? Last call. Otherwise, we'll proceed to board business. Hearing none, we'll move to board business and consider approval of the consent agenda items. We have our regular board meeting minutes from the July 26th meeting, the personnel items, and the payment of the bills. Is there any discussion on any particular item within the consent agenda? Second call for any discussion. Last call for any discussion on the consent agenda. Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda. If there aren't any objections, this motion will be adopted. Are there any objections? Second call for objections. Last call. Hearing no objections, the consent agenda has been approved, and we can move on to item 3, the superintendent's report. Dr. Clardy.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you, Noah, for the introduction. I also want to reiterate what Nicole stated and the rest of the board. Just appreciation for public comment, the willingness to come in, whether we agree or disagree, to provide perspective is excuse me, important in our work, and truly appreciate it. So I want to open up our updates. There we go. At the opening of this meeting, and in the opening of every meeting moving forward, you've heard us and you've seen us place our Vsd Equity Statement right in front of our crowd. This is for multiple reasons. The two most important are that we have this lens for our work in board and service to our community. The second reason is very intentional, is to not allow anyone to replace the equity statement for us. When we say educational equity, this is exactly what we mean, and this is exactly how we lead. And it is not to be replaced with a narrative outside of the words that you see in front of you, because this is the words that we are acting by. And so we will continue to work under this equity statement that was created by the Verona Area School District community. This was created during the formation of the strategic framework with multiple voices across multiple demographics across our boundaries. And so I want to make sure that we stay framed in that work and understand why we're doing the work. So I'm here also to provide for reentry updates. We have not met since the communication that went out to families in our community with the expectations or how we are going to bring our students back into school. September 1st is the most exciting day. This is the day we've all been waiting for as educators, is to be able to bring all of our students back into our buildings 5 days a week. And we are committed to that work and to the expectation. There's nothing like that first day of school. The first day of school, when everyone's ready, they're excited, our teachers are excited. We've had a great summer, but we also know we've had some challenges along the way. But keeping that in mind, our focus has and will continue to be ensuring by any means necessary that we keep all of our students in school 5 days a week and not create any situation where something else takes its place or we have to move to a different structure. The number one way to do it, we know to do that and support is vaccinations. So VSD will continue to strongly support and recommend that all staff and students receive the COVID-19 vaccination if they're age eligible. We will continue to promote that. Currently, in our currently state, we will not mandate vaccinations for student attendance or employment. We are not in the means, made to do that. Okay. So in order for us to meet our expectations for the year, and I'll put it right in front of you, our decisions and all of our decisions were built on a fall 2021 goal that prioritized the safe return of all students and staff to 5 days a week of in-person instruction, and more importantly, to remain in an in-person learning environment. To do that, we have to ensure the safety and well-being of all students, families, and staff. We have to minimize pivots and disruptions to the learning environment. And we have to meet the community expectation to maximize in-person instruction. This is what this community has clearly asked for. So that said, masks will be required for 4K through 12 and adults inside school district facilities and at indoor district activities for 2021. Yeah, that is not a statement for the entire year. That is a statement of how we will enter school in the fall. We've heard an abundance, and I've read an abundance of medical advice and resources. I can tell you that reading both all the pros and cons, reading recommendations one way and recommendations the other way is very time consuming, but it's very important. We have to understand the perspective. We have to understand why there's some pushback. We have to understand why there are some that have a clear expectation that we have masks going into school. I do say and can say that myself and my team read the materials very, very thoroughly. Much like you, we're looking for science-based evidence. We're looking for research that is science-based, not opinion-based. I will state that the expectation for masks to enter in the fall is primarily based on the 4 organizations that you see on the screen: the American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, DHS, and PHMDC. Is it going backwards?
There you go.
Thank you.
Mhm.
On the next slide, I want you to pay very close attention to the date that's in the slide. We were in the midst of making decision and reading as much as we could and seeking medical advice and science-based medical advice on how to safely meet the goal of all of our students entering in the fall. As you can see in the graph in front of you, the Delta variant played a significant role in changing our data sets into what we now see as our case loads. And this was from August 2nd, 2021, and the letter information went out, I believe, on August 4th. So if you look at these spikes, where as of that date was a daily case count of over 60 as compared to when the variant was initially recognized by the CDC, there's a significant increase, and that increase was in Dane County. So these are real stats and real facts. You also see the mitigation updates for masks. And again, the documentation of the spread of COVID-19 from vaccinated and unvaccinated members in our community were significantly on the rise. So with that information in front of us, with the recommendations across our federal, state, and local medical advisors and our local and district medical advisory, we have mandated a return to school in mass for the safety of all of our students and for the safety to allow the students to stay in the 5-day-a-week environment. So quarantine mask means the following. In a fully masked environment, students do not need to quarantine due to classroom-based exposure. Cohorting with masking is not required, and the 6-foot distancing is not required. This means that we can run our schools at the designated capacity that they were meant to run at, and allow for all of our students to have equitable and equal access to our schools without missing instruction or not changing the instructional environment. What's more important is that the note at the bottom, in a mask optional environment, quarantining, cohorting, and distancing change, these changes will be more intrusive to the learning environment or disrupt the ability for students to attend in person. So when you look at all the factors that I've laid before you, if you look at our goal and sticking with that goal, this was the best decision for allow us to maintain and have access for all of our students 5 days a week and to stay in our classrooms 5 days a week. So quickly, I'm going to have members of my finance team and my academic services team come to talk about some of the protocols moving forward.
Dr. Clarity, I can take this slide, and this is to reiterate again. This is directly off the Dane County Public Health website, where their guidance explicitly states that on the top there, in a masked environment, we would not be required to contact trace or quarantine students who are exposed to another COVID positive person in a school. And to reiterate Dr. Clarity's point, our goal is to have as many of our students who wish to return to an in-person setting return 5 days a week. And we are in a place now that it's been our decision to follow the advice of our local healthcare professionals. We are not in the business, we're educators, and we are learning this as we go. But again, I have to do what we can to make decisions that put our students in a place to be here 5 days a week and do so safely. The bottom of that graphic on that screenshot is the opposite, where if we were in a mass optional environment and we did have a COVID positive student or staff member, we'd be in a position following that guidance that the students who are exposed to a COVID positive student would be forced to quarantine for 7 days. And then we're returning to a situation where students are toggling back and forth from that in-person setting to that virtual setting. And we'd prefer not to go there, at least minimize the amount of time we have to go there.
In addition to the masking mandate for fall reentry, we will continue other mitigation guidelines to support the safety of our students. You'll see the bulleted areas in front of you. They look very similar to last year, what our students experienced in the past. But we will make sure that also in support of the masking work, that we continue these strong mitigation strategies to ensure the safest environment possible.
Dr. Claire, the only thing I would add to that slide is the note around possible contact tracing potentially needed during lunch. So we're working with our school leaders and our nutrition team to do whatever we can to make sure students are at least 6 feet apart during lunch. And potentially, if they have to get closer than 6 feet, that they do that for less than 15 minutes. But that, to Dr. Clarity's point, it's not absolute. And if there are times that we believe there was an exposure that would trip us into contact tracing, we will certainly do that.
Thank you for that.
Again, to follow up on the point I just made, we are, we're working in particular at the high school, where we will now bring back nearly 1,700 students on a plan to spread out for lunch. And we will work on plans at all of our sites where they have, in some cases, more square footage to do that. In other cases, it may mean that we will actually have to stretch out the lunch period a little bit to allow for spacing of our students.
Some of the questions that have come have been really about the district authority to require masks, and the answer is yes. Districts do have legal authority to issue mask requirements for students and even staff, even if there is not a local public health order. The same authority allows for districts to establish dress codes of conduct for protective equipment, shoes, sports, helmets, etc. There's also been legal counsel and precedent challenging the legal authority, and that has been taken up and upheld by the court. Next, we're going to transition to the instructional models as to how we will enter for fall, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Hawkins.
Good evening. So we're excited that students are going to return to school 5 days a week. And we're also excited to share that we will have late start Mondays for our elementary students, which will allow teachers and staff to participate in PLCs and professional development. Our students 6 through 12 will have late start Mondays every other week. Virtual instruction, students will have access from home, those students kindergarten through 8th grade using the Edgenuity platform, and then 9 through 12, they'll use Edgeseer. At the high school level, they've used Edgeseer before in the past. It was an online learning platform that was used if students needed to be out for medical and or travel and or other extenuating circumstances that forced them to be out of school. So they had already used Eduseer and already had a platform in place that was well received by our students 9 through 12. Edgenuity, we're offering parent information sessions for those families that signed up for virtual learning. So we had a session today, and then we'll have another session Wednesday. So our parents are able to learn and get more information about the online learning platform. The virtual option requires a semester-long commitment, and we believe that this is valuable because it allows for our students, whether it be in person or in the virtual platform, they have an opportunity to build relationships with their teachers and their peers, be it virtually and or online. So that continuity of instruction is important, which is why we're asking those parents that sign up for the virtual option, it is a 1 semester commitment. We're pleased to say that we have 68 students that have signed up for the virtual option. This graph reflects kindergarten through 12th grade. You'll see that in 3rd grade, that's our highest grade level cohort with 11 students. So at the elementary level, there's a 3rd grade class, virtual option class that has 11 students. 9 through 12, we have approximately 20 to 22 students, 9th grade being our lowest with only 1 student that signed up. Other than that, we're really pleased to and proud to say that we have an option for families that wanted a choice. And so this was what we prepared and planned for them.
I think we're losing a little battery, I'm sorry.
Food service.
All right, one food service update that isn't necessarily safety related. We are excited about the fact that breakfast and lunch will be free for all of our learners again this school year due to an extension of that federal allowance. We will return to lunch being served in lines. Some more of that. We're back to, instead of having single serves in a bag or in a disposable container, actually using washable trays. So we're hoping our food and nutrition offerings are a little more exciting for all of our students. And again, we will take all safety precautions into account as we're doing this. Only other thing to update the community and the board on is that we will continue to offer weekly meal bundles for our virtual learners that can be picked up and delivered as needed.
Thank you. So I want to close this part of the fall reentry plan with this number, 5,729. That's today's enrollment as of 12 o'clock. Verona Area School District is as big and bigger as big as it's ever been, and it continues to grow. It grows because of the expectations of a world-class education, which this team and our staff will deliver. 5,729, though, is also more importantly, the number of students I'm responsible for returning to their homes safely each and every day. So I've read all the emails respectfully so. I hear all the comments respectfully so, and I will continue to do so because, again, your perspective matters. But I will be very transparent when I hear data points that only a few children have died of COVID. That's a few too many. Because if it's my child and the administrator who's already lost a child from COVID, we don't get to pick and choose who that few is. Nobody does. It is my responsibility to send every single child home safe, and that is what we're going to do. So thank you for your time. Board, if there are any questions about the fall reentry, I'm happy to answer.
Dr. Clarity, I'd just like to say, I think what the entire board would echo. are very grateful for your leadership at this time. This is an incredibly challenging time. You have set out very clearly your priorities, your reliable sources, and you have made a decision that is going to benefit all the students in Verona area school district by either coming back to school masked or having a virtual option. And I, for one, am very, very grateful. And I know I echo the thoughts of my fellow board members. Thank you for your leadership at this time.
Absolutely. I'd like to echo Meredith's statement. Thank you.
Dr. Clardy, I do have two questions related
Absolutely.
to what you've submitted, gone over here. The first one is regarding Mondays every other day for 6 through 12. If you can just explain the differences between every Monday for the younger grades and then every other Monday for the others. And then I just wanted to ask if families had an option to switch to virtual at this time, if they wanted to. So just curious if that's an option now or if that's locked in already.
Yana, I can, if you're okay, if we could just delay the answer to your first question. I think we have a slide coming up regarding transportation, which
Okay.
is related to that bell schedule.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
And so regarding your question about parents being given the opportunity to sign up for virtual learning, the window was extended. So we had a window for the first offering of virtual learning. And so then when the masking conversation came up, the window was opened and extended again so that families could then choose if they wanted to mask, if they wanted to not mask, if they wanted to mask at home, they could choose the virtual option. So that window was extended.
Okay, thank you.
Can you answer in the opposite as well? If families who chose the virtual option would ever like to switch to in-person, I'm guessing that window was opened
Absolutely.
as well. Okay.
So families that chose the virtual option, if they have since decided to want to return to in-person learning, they have up until this Friday. We're sending out information to those families. We shared communication and reminders, giving them an option to return to in-person learning if they so choose.
Thank you.
Can I just ask for parents who have any questions? I know I've been asked some questions about operational details. So is it best for them to contact like the building principal, for example, if they have an elementary student? I'm just trying to direct them to the correct sources. As I've said, the board, what I've told them is that the board is not creating these operational plans. We're in full support of them, but we are not creating them. So I'm trying to make sure that they know, where's the best point of contact for them to ask questions about, specifics of how these operational details might work in their child's elementary school or middle school building.
Absolutely. You can always direct them to their building principal. And if there's still some concern or they have additional questions, you can direct them to central office. Marcia Bird is my executive administrator. And from there, she can direct the family to the right person, depending on the question. So she'll ask them the question. It could be myself. It could be the director of secondary, which is Karen Stocks-Glover. It could be our director of technology, Amy Arbagash, or our director of elementary, Adam Zingsheim, or our director of bilingual programs. So anyone at central office can direct them to the right person, but they can always start with their building principal and they can help them as well.
Thanks for clarifying that, because I know there's a range of questions about everything from lunch to bus specifics to things like that. And so sometimes it's hard for parents to really know, with this particular question, where should I go?
The building principal would be the best place to go. We are working really hard to provide consistent, ongoing information to the principals almost daily. We're sending out information. We're meeting with our principals so that they have the most current, up-to-date information from central office. And then they would be best in the best position to answer site-specific questions, because there are some differences from one building to the next. So starting with the building principal would be the best place.
Okay, thank you so much.
And this is my last question, I promise. Dr. Clardy, what's the date that our new website's going to be released? Just on the computer.
Just on the computer, August 24th.
Okay.
Bright and shiny.
All right.
Preview
I know that
20th,
people
I
have
think.
continued to mention how difficult our website is. I had a parent email or text me today and said, I can't find the link to the board meeting. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you because I'm at the board meeting, but I know that, there have been questions about that. So I just wanted to hear the date one more time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I will adamantly apologize for that inconvenience. We are rectifying this as quickly as possible.
I have mentioned that as well.
Thank
Thank you.
Transportation.
Yep, a brief update with transportation. You all saw me back in July, and I hinted at the fact that there was a chance we were going to have to make a change, and this one is a fairly significant one to respond to the ongoing driver shortage. We have continued to partner with Badger Bus. Perhaps you've even seen me on Channel 27 or Channel 3. Poor John has done the media circuit now for another couple of months. And we literally, no holds barred to try to recruit drivers here over the summer. And I saw John in an interview this morning who kind of put it best, where we have a perfect storm where many of our drivers are 55 plus. There were layoffs that happened because we didn't need buses last year. And now we have Delta in the news every 10 seconds. And Badger Bus and many transportation providers just have not been able to recover to hire drivers needed to bring our students to school. So we made a decision, quite frankly, a decision that should take well over a year of planning in a matter of months. And cannot thank our team, including our team of principals and the Verona community for their understanding of kind of how we had to pivot here to make sure that we could get all of our students to school. And again, I heard Dr. Clarity say it time and time again. We need to make sure if students want to come back to in-person learning 5 days a week, they need to do that, and it starts with a bus ride. So we did make the decision to move towards triple looping, which is common in many school districts, just has not been historically what the Verona Area School District has done. And I believe we came up with a fairly palatable bus schedule. I guess the fact that we got zero complaints from our Verona area families either shows that they also have been watching the news and understand, or that this schedule works for most of them. And what it means is that our elementary schools had to start slightly earlier, 5 minutes earlier. Our middle schools had to make a move to that 8 o'clock start, and our high school had to start a little bit later. I imagine if any of our high schoolers are tracking this, many of them are actually quite excited for the fact that they get to start a little bit later. I've got a high schooler of my own a little bit later in the morning. And we have come up with a plan that means that we can really reduce the number of drivers we will need for the year. And this likely will be in place for the year by 33%. And that means we don't have media blasts saying bus driver shortage this week. We're going to have late routes. Bus driver shortage this week. This week we go to triple looping. Next week we're back to double looping. This is a plan that is sustainable for our families to be able to count on for the school year. We will reassess when we get through the school year. And if it worked, in some ways, the positives might outweigh any of the drawbacks that had to happen, in particular at the high school, where they're getting out at 3:50. There are other area school districts. Middleton gets out at 3:45. Oregon's out at 3:50. That many of the things that may happen athletics wise at the end of the school day may not be as much of a factor in terms of that late dismissal for our high schools. But there's the possibility of some long-term cost savings to the school district. And there's nothing that makes me happier than skinnying up the operations budget so we can pour it back into the classroom. And that's essentially what we'd be able to do if there's some long-term savings here. Did want to let the board know that we communicated this extensively. Thanks, Rochelle, for all of her work. Local media, social media, staff email, family media, email, and to community organizations throughout. We believe we're in a spot that this is going to work for the school year. Yana, you did have a question around the fact that we have late start Mondays at our elementary sites and at our secondary sites that's every other Monday. And there was a lot of planning that actually happened behind the scenes to get to this bell schedule, because it was going to get really wonky, where we were actually going to have like a goofy 8 o'clock start at the high school, like every other Monday, when we were putting the original plan together. And thank our principals for helping us come up with this finalized plan. We did take a look at trying to have the whole district start late on Mondays to offer consistency even for our families, but certainly would have welcomed that additional planning time for our staff. And the reason we couldn't do it was because of DPI instructional minutes. And if that's something that we, potentially through the school improvement planning process want to take a look at next year, again, that's something that is potentially has resources tied to it, but certainly something we could look at for next year, but we just couldn't squeeze it this year. We would have been 2 days of instructional minutes short if we would have made the decision to move middle school and high school every Monday.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'll certainly take questions if they've got them, Dr. Clarity.
I'll just share a gratitude, though you said this was like a year of planning in 3 weeks, I still would like to use the word proactive. I do feel, given the time frame for the start of school, that the team was incredibly proactive about making this change to give families at least somewhat adequate time to plan. And I'm thankful to the community to hear that there were no responses. I just appreciate then everyone's understanding of just what the situation is that we have. And thank you for surfacing the potential positives that could come out of this for teachers, for families, for kids. There's a lot of interesting things that maybe we've been forced to experiment with that could potentially give some really interesting feedback about how we do things. So thank you.
I said that was my last question, and then I got another one when you were talking. I'm just curious about, I know that everybody is short drivers everywhere. So I'm just curious about if there are any implications to this shortage for student access to like extracurriculars and getting home later in the evening and things like that.
So what it looks like we have late buses all set, and we've adjusted those times slightly because the bell times have changed. So I feel really good about that. John Bremer, who's working closely on the transportation side at the high school level, it looks like we are in good shape as far as transportation to athletic events. Some of the smaller ones will be able to use district-owned vans, and the larger team events where we just feel better if we're putting 40 kids headed towards Janesville on a bus, we've got that set up. It did require that we actually had to hire Van Gulder charters for about 15 of our routes. So there may be like a lucky JV football team that, oh man, is it John Madden in the back seat here? As we pull up, but that's because we just didn't, Badger couldn't do it, Dane County couldn't do it. We had to call Van Gulder out of Janesville. So the high school set. The middle school we're continuing to problem solve around. It may mean some parent transport, some van transport, and some high school and some bus transport. But high school athletics is solid. We actually have a meeting with all of our middle school ADs tomorrow to continue to problem solve around that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
All right, the final component of our update is our, I think, significant and rightfully so investment in instructional leadership. As we began this day, we talked about our budget and our financial investment. We also have reiterated that, our instructional practice and instructional design and what we gain from our tax dollars is what we're actually interested in here. And so we're very fortunate to have a administrative retreat where we spent 2 days, now it's been 3 days since our last meeting, with our leadership to enhance their instructional leadership and also make sure that we held on to this premise of a leadership that I think is so vital. I think we can all agree is so vital, is leading with the why. And we are modeling those why statements both in our actions and our beliefs in our statements. We can always say what and how, but if people don't understand your why, you're not going to get much in results from your leadership actions. You have a great example of our leadership right here in front of us with she wants her picture up on stage. With one of our tremendous leaders, Mrs. Otisine Tracy Williams, that really modeled what it means to speak and lead through your why, but also the vulnerability just to share your story. We follow that up with our staff placing their whys on their doors and also communicating that to their staff when they come out, so we can really have this cascade of our leading with the why be a part of the way we work here in VSD. Quickly, I won't belabor you with the agenda, but I just wanted to give the high level themes of what we worked on as a team. Again, grounded in equity, time for healing and continuous improvement. Our goal is by, May is that you're just nauseated with us saying this, but that is what we're doing this year. And then we're staying in that lane for the foreseeable future. What a key component you see in the last two bullet points was change management. And you saw the transformational leadership design, but we also wanted to move and understand the difference between technical leadership and adaptive leadership and what that means for our staff and how they receive. So we don't want to get mired down with reports and documents if we don't have the adaptive leadership moves that go along with it that actually change actions and beliefs. And so we work diligently on how to balance both, knowing that both are necessary in our work, but making sure one doesn't outweigh the other. You saw that again come to life in day 2 of the retreat. I want to lift up data mindsets and data culture, where we're just naming when disproportionality happens. It is our responsibility to close those opportunity gaps that cause this disproportionality. And so we engaged in some discussions around real authentic data, focused in on focus groups, and we named the improvements that we need to make as a district in support of all of our students. So with that, I know that was a little bit longer this time, but I appreciate the audience and the captivity from the Board of Education, and just open to any questions or discussion.
I have a quick question. Can you just define like who was in attendance at the admin retreat when you talk about the admin team?
Sure, that's a great question. I should have done a better job of that. So we're an acronym city. So we have COLT, which stands for Central Office Leadership Team, and then we have COLT Plus, which is Central Office Leadership Team plus all the building level administrators.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So this was COLT Plus.
This was COLT Plus.
Right.
This was everyone. This was building leadership and central leadership. And I'll say it again, the overarching message that I want our building leaders to know and understand is a central office works in support of buildings. And so we are working collaboratively with our building leaders to make sure that what happens in the classroom is fully supported and we have their voice in the room.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Great question, though. I should have said that.
No worries.
Other questions? Well, thank you very much for this update.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all the work that you're
Thank
doing,
you. I know,
focusing
definitely.
on the big picture of the why we're all here and having that be central. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Great. Anything else in superintendent's report, or are we? Okay. We can move to future agenda items and meeting dates. We have our trainings over the next 3 days, and then we have our September 13th regular board meeting. Any questions or thoughts on the future agenda items and meeting dates?
Excited to spend the whole week with everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. We can finally put in the long, hard hours these other COLT Plus folks are doing. It's about time,
We
right?
can try.
Absolutely.
So just to clarify, are we August 30th? No meeting.
That should probably be on the agenda.
Okay.
Yep.
So we do have one. Do we have one of them or not?
I don't think we do, but we can,
I just
depending
lost track
on,
of my calendar.
Right.
I think we discussed
Didn't
depending
have
on
it on
the
the calendar.
next 3 days, we'll
Okay. We're saying August.
determine whether
Okay.
that's our different date. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Well, be prepared for another calendar poll. Committee reports. I'm going to assume, unless there is someone who has a report out, that there are no report outs. Okay. And with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Meredith and a second from Yana. Any last questions or comments before we vote? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And this motion carries. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all very
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Thanks. Jean.